know she's looking at you.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I thought I would sit down, have a bit of a chit chat, got some popcorn, and I thought I would sit and kind of talk to you guys about like the Disney Cultural Exchange Programme. So obviously last year, back in the summer, so like June time till the end of August, I did the Cultural Exchange Programme through Disney, through Yummy Jobs, and I lived out there in America for 3 months. If you haven't seen my videos on my channel, I've got a full playlist of my whole experience. But yeah, so I kind of just thought I'd pick this up and eat it. I kind of just thought that I would sit down and answer all of your guys' questions. I did like a little Instagram Q&A thing, so I've got quite a few questions, but by all means, please DM me on Instagram if you have any more, or I can do more questions if you've got more questions. But yeah, I get questions still even now, like it's been almost like a year since I left for the programme, and like I still get questions now, which I absolutely love talking about it, so by all means send me questions. But I just thought I'd sit down, haven't done a sit down video in ages, and just chat about it really. But yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna get straight on with the video. So obviously, if you didn't know, if you haven't watched my videos before or like follow me on Instagram, you won't know that I actually worked in merchandise, and I worked in the Emporium in Magic Kingdom, which you can never stop me bragging about because I will always brag about that. But I had quite a few questions on merch, so I'm going to kind of go into that first. If you're not in merch or you've got no interest in being in merch, then obviously you can skip ahead because I'm going to do videos about living in Flamingo and what living situation's like and travel and everything like that. So the time will come, but I just thought I'd go into some of these questions first. So my first question is, with merch, can you swap shifts and work at other parks and stores? Now, yeah, you are more than happy to do this. So what you have to do first, you obviously have to get trained up. So it's like the process where you're earning my ears. So that is where you have all your training, you get taught how to use like the CDS machines and the tills and everything like that, and the currency, you have to sit and learn all about that. Once you are trained up on all that, you actually like get like your skills ticked, and then there is an option on the hub, which is like a Disney kind of like work thing. So you only can have the hub when you've got a Disney company ID. And you log in, your trainers will show you how to use this. I can't actually show you anymore because I don't have my hub ID anymore. But you just log on, and that gives you the opportunity to pick up shifts or swap your shifts. There is a lot of Facebook groups like on Facebook where you can chat to people in merchandise who want to trade shifts with you. The only thing that I will tell you is, unless you're working in like Epcot or like in one of the hotels like the resorts, you will not get trained on tobacco selling and alcohol selling. Now, these two things you have to be able to work in Epcot merchandise or the resorts merchandise. So just be aware of that, like maybe get that done at the start of your programme. I insisted to my trainers for about 2 months that I wanted this training because I really wanted to say that I worked all 4 parks. However, I just did not get mine in time. I ended up getting it eventually, but then it was too late to swap my shifts, and my trainers, my leaders, sorry, they couldn't swap my shifts because it has to fit within your hours. So if I was trying to pick up shifts, it just physically would not let me if I already had like a set amount of shifts that week or like a set amount of hours that week. So yeah, you have to talk to your leaders and things like that, but it is really easy to swap shifts in like other locations. So I actually worked in, so I obviously worked in the Emporium as my home location, but I ended up doing shifts in World of Disney. I worked in Hollywood Studios on Hollywood Boulevard. So I worked in, I can't remember what they're called. I worked in 2 out of 3 of the stores on Hollywood Boulevard, and I also picked up another shop in Disney Springs which is called D-Tech. I feel like that is it. I also had a shift in Animal Kingdom that I never went to. I ended up giving it away, and I also tried to get a UK pavilion shift in Epcot. Again, I didn't do that because I wasn't allowed because of my training. So yeah, it completely depends on where you want to work, when you want to swap shifts. And obviously the Facebook group chats you're in, I highly recommend there being like a merch one for all the UK participants, because that way you can trade shifts with them as well. So obviously you're all in different locations, so we always chatted in there and swapped our shifts in there as well. Okay, next question I got was, how much is wage per hour? So how much is your wage completely depends on your location. Not your location, sorry, your role. So when I went out there, obviously this also changes every year, and I think there is like some sort of petition for cast members to get more money, so like you just always have to be like refreshing and keeping an eye on that. When you actually apply on the Yummy Jobs website, it will tell you how much that you're basically going to earn. The minimum rate which you can earn out there was $14 during my program. So I earned $14. For quick service food and beverage, if you were outside, I know you got $14.75, and lifeguards got $16. Now, obviously, I think it was 16. Lifeguards got either $15 or $16 an hour, which obviously there is a safety critical role, so they earned more than us. But attractions and merchandise were the exact same. They were $14 each. How many days off a week did you get? So roughly I always got 2. I know a couple of my friends who didn't, they got 1 a week. And a couple of my friends who got like 2, 3 a week. I always tend to have got the same days off, so I always had Thursday, Friday off from the get-go. And they kind of do like to do this. They like to give you 2 consecutive days off together. If you are, again, in a safety critical role, they have to do that for you. But yeah, I was Thursday, Fridays, they were always my days off. I could swap, I could trade. Oh, I also worked in Fantasyland, I forgot to say that. So I actually picked up a Fantasyland shift on one of the weeks that I kind of like gave a lot of shifts away. So I ended up having like Monday and Friday as my days off instead, and like things like that. You can also request to leaders, so you can request a callback. A lot of people coming from the UK that don't have a US SIM card found it quite difficult to get a request to call a lead back. My gosh, I can't speak. All you have to do is request for them to ring you. Don't try and ring them, it just doesn't work. But if you request for them to ring you back, they will try once. If they can't get through to you, then they won't try again, so you have to request it again. Like if you miss it because you're in the shower or whatever. So yeah, so I would request a leader call back, and then they would ring me, and I actually got a couple of days off this way. Just explaining like I remember one time I picked up shifts so I only had 1 day off that week, so I rung my leader and I requested a leader callback, sorry, and the leader rung me and said like, look, if you want this day off, we've got enough staff, like you can have the day off. So yeah, and you can also request things like ERs, so early releases, things like that while you're on shift. I will be honest with you though, not a lot of the time they get accepted. I think I got 1 ER out of like my whole time out there. Can you switch your job once you're there if you don't like it to something else? So I actually loved my job, so I didn't actually experience this, but I do know a girl who was working on an attraction. She absolutely hated the attraction. It wasn't that she just disliked it, it was the safety aspect of it, and there was also something else, and I'm pretty sure there will have been ins and outs of it, but I'm sure the girl pretty much couldn't work on that attraction. I also heard of people who you are in a safety critical role in attractions, and you have to do like an assessment to basically say that you can work in that role. You do that with everything, even merchandise, but I know that there was somebody who was working attractions who had to then swap to food and beverage because they didn't pass the assessment. So yes, you can, but I will say that there was a girl out there who was working for quick service food and beverage who hated it and tried to request to change roles and they wouldn't let her. So I think it completely depends on your leader, it completely depends on who you speak to and whether or not they've got other roles available. Well, I've got a question on what are your average hours of work. I did kind of touch on this earlier. Mine were usually around 30 to 40 hours a week, but some roles are more dependent and they will want you to work like closer to 60 hours a week. It completely depends on your role, and it also depends on how many people they employ for different roles. So I know quick service food and bev while I was there was very low on staff, so a lot of the quick service food and bev people work till like stupid hours really. They worked like 10-12 hour shifts every day back to back. I think it just completely depends. I feel like I was quite lucky. I worked 5 days a week, I didn't work 7. Obviously I did have to work late nights, I did work till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, but my body kind of shifted to that time and they're quite consistent. So if you are working nights, you will more or less only work nights. If you are a day person, they will put you on days. However, they do specify that CPs means closing person, which means you are the person that's on the close, and that tended to be a lot. Like if you go to Disney World, I will guarantee you that after about 5 PM the whole park is run by CPs. There's obviously your leaders and your like coordinators, but I can guarantee you will notice as you walk around the park that everybody is a CP. Like everybody is on a Disney College program. Okay, so what are the incentives with working at Disney or for Disney? So first of all, the main perk, the main reason that a lot of people will do this program or do Disney programs is because you get free access to the parks as cast members. So whenever you're not working, or before your shift or after your shift, you still have to do the same kind of thing that like guests have to do at the moment, which is reserve a park reservation. But you get free access to the parks the whole time of your stay, the whole time you're there. As soon as you get your main guest entrance pass, cast member guest pass, I don't really know what it's called, you can attach it to your My Disney Experience app, and that is it. You are free to go for the full 3 months, which is incredible. So yeah, so I was talking about incentives. So you also get, so you get your cast member entrance pass, you also get discount on merchandise and food. Now this is not every restaurant, this is not every quick service, every store, but 9 times out of 10 they will do the cast member discount. I know resorts, any resort that I went to, if you order through the My Disney Experience app, you always get discount. If you're shopping online, you get discount. If you're in store, like in the park, you can just show your Blue ID, they'll scan it for you. So yeah, you get discount, and the discount's really, really good because some months it might be more than what it is at, like normally. I believe normally it's 10 to 20% discount. There was a period of time whilst I was out there, obviously it's not on anymore so I can tell you guys, but cast members actually got 50% off for a whole month whilst I was out there, so that was incredible. But yeah, so you get a lot of perks. The other one is a major one which I used while I was out there too, is discount on hotels. So you actually get discount on all the resorts on property, and sometimes that discount is more, sometimes it's less. I know Caribbean Beach, when we stopped on the last few days of our trip, we actually got quite a good discount on that, and the rooms were pretty much priced at what a value resort is for regular guests, and we stayed for 2 nights, so, and that was like 1 night stay kind of pricing. So yeah, the discounts are really, really good. And I also forgot to mention the last thing, which is if you are a cast member, you don't have just free entry into the Walt Disney World parks in Orlando. You actually have free entry into all of the parks, any Disney park within the world. So you could go over to LA. If you're on the visa that I was on, you're just not allowed to leave the States for the 3 months that you're there. So while you're there, you can actually go to California if you got the time off, and go to Disneyland California. A lot of people that I did the program with, they actually went at the end of their program. Sometimes it completely depends on whether or not your guest pass lasts. I know some people's gets cut off straight away. Some people speak to their leaders and ask see if they can have it extended just for like the 2 weeks after, because you actually get a month on your visa to travel with before you have to return home to the UK. So you actually get like 4 months of being out there. So you actually get like an extra month. So I know a lot of people like kind of said to their leaders, look, could you keep me extended just for like 2 weeks? Some leaders are absolutely fine with it, some leaders are not, so you just have to kind of like see what the vibe is. But yeah, you get access into all of those parks, it's not just Walt Disney World. And then the last thing that I notably found was a benefit is that you actually get things called Chippendales, which are guest passes. You earn these every time you work a certain amount of hours. I never used mine, and you have to use them whilst you're a cast member, but it basically means that any family or friends that come over to the States, or that are, you know, from the States anyways, that are wanting to get into the parks, as long as you're entering the park with them, they're allowed to come with you and they get in for free. So you will have a lot of people message you about this while you go out there, and a lot of people that you've probably not spoken to in years will talk to you about it. But yeah, you just do you. Like if you want to take them in, you can use your guest pass. I will be honest, on the 3-month program you don't earn that many. I think overall I got like 3 day passes, which obviously 3 days isn't that long. And it's for one person, so yeah, it completely depends on the hours. But if you're doing the year-long program, I mean, you'll probably earn like quite a lot. You could probably bring your family or maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend out there for like a week's trip to be able to go into the Disney parks. I don't know, but yeah, so that is one of the perks. The last thing that I will say as well, which is a perk that's not with Disney but it comes along with working over there, is because you're a Florida resident, so you are technically living and working in Florida as a Florida resident, you can go to Universal and actually get an annual pass with Florida discount, which works out cheaper than buying your park tickets every time you want to visit Universal. So I actually did this, and I only went to Universal like 4 times whilst I was out there, and I made my money back like 100%. But the annual pass that I got literally cost me for Volcano Bay and for Universal. With my Florida discount, it was like, I want to say like $400, $500. Could have been a little bit more than that, but I really don't think it was. I think it was quite cheap. And yeah, and you get that because you're living in Flamingo Crossings, you are a Florida resident. So yeah, that is another perk. I also have a follow-up question to this, was the Universal annual pass worth it? Absolutely 100%. If you love rides and you want to visit Universal, I mean, I've been to the Universal before, so I knew it was something that I wanted, but I think if you love rides, like Disney is amazing. It's got the magic, it's got rides, it's got just loads of good memories. But I will say that the thrill rides are Universal. Like, yeah, Disney's now got Tron and Guardians. Guardians is amazing. But apart from like them and like maybe Everest, things like that, if you're wanting thrill rides, Universal is where it's at. And I love Universal. Like, I personally wouldn't want to work there. And I'll be honest, I think that the Disney magic is what makes it so much of an enjoyable job. And that's just going off preference. I've never worked at Universal, and I've never spoken to anybody that's worked at Universal, so could be completely like being just biased. But apart from that, like I would just say, yeah, the annual pass is worth it if you're going to use it, because an Uber costs around, from Flamingo Crossings, it costs around $30 to $40, and that's like there, so then back as well. But if you're splitting it between 4 or 5 of you, it's not that bad, and then you obviously get in for free because you're paying a monthly subscription to your annual pass, or you pay up front. But either way, it doesn't make much difference in the price. I averaged mine out, and mine was about £23 a month, which I really don't think that's bad. I did pay an upfront cost, so I paid like £250, and then I just paid like monthly from that until it ran out. But yeah, okay, I've kind of covered this question already. I'm not going to go into too much because I've already talked about it, but somebody's asked specifically about the discount on hotels. Now, you do have to be a cast member when you're staying in the hotels. Now, you can slightly get away with this. At the end of your program, you can say, like you can, yeah, right, this is tricky. So if you are wanting to stay in a Disney hotel whilst you're on your program, there's not an issue. You can literally just use the hub. The hub has got what I talked about earlier. It has got everything on there, and that is where you can make Disney hotel reservations. So you go on there and you basically just put in all your details, you book the hotel you want to book, and then you have to go to the hotel either before check-in or on your check-in day and show your Blue ID. That just basically means to confirm, yep, you can stay here because you're a cast member. You can bring friends along with you, that's not a problem at all, whether they're cast members or not cast members. You do have to specify that though. I don't think it really makes a difference on price. It's just whether or not, like, it just basically is to say who's staying in that room. And it's quite easy if you're a cast member, like you just do that. Easy, done and dusted. Say that your program ends on like August 20th and you want a hotel stay from August 20th for like 2 weeks. All you have to do in that sense is you can go check in, not check in, but you can go to the check-in desk to show your cast member ID up to 2 weeks before you actually have that hotel stay. So you will still have your Blue ID. So you can go and you can show them your Blue ID and they can say, yep, you're a cast member, and you will still get your discount. I'm not promoting this, by the way, but I know a lot of people that did it and it worked fine. So yeah, obviously you cannot book a trip a year in advance as a cast member with the cast member discount, because you will not have your Blue ID valid to show. Even if you keep your Blue ID at the end of your program, your Blue ID will not be valid. So you can go and try and use it and they will just tell you it's not valid and you have to pay the actual costs, which could be costly. So please be careful of that. But yeah, while you're on the program, it's easy, and if you need any like help with that, there's so many people who know what they're doing in like the Flamingo Crossings, like Disney Hub, and also your leaders, your trainers, your colleagues at work. They all know what to do with stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but they will show you how to use the hub and you can ask those questions. Like, the trainers are not fussed on showing you how to do that. So yeah, a lot of the questions I got was what to actually write on your application. So you obviously send in your CV, and you send in like a cover letter. This cover letter is basically just kind of saying why you want to work for Disney. Now what I will say, through the whole application process, so through your through pre-screening, through your like actual initial application, please do not dare say it's because you're a Disney fan. Like, the one main reason that I think a lot of people will get employed is because they have memories of why cast members go above and beyond for guests. And also, if you're like planning to do like the cultural exchange or the cultural representative, you've got to kind of be interested in the cultural aspect of it. So I basically pushed a lot on my application about the fact that I had a lot of magical moments growing up as a kid. And even when I was an adult in 2019, I went without any adults, like I was the adult that went. They actually still had magical moments, and cast members went out their way to make sure that I had amazing things happen. And it's not even like they gave you free stuff or things like that. I literally wrote about the fact that in 2019 I was walking through, and literally there was one of the fairy godmothers stood outside of Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, and she literally fairy dusted me, and it was something that was just so small, but I was just like, oh my gosh, like I would have loved to do Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique if I was little. And obviously that wasn't about when I was younger, so it just made me like shrink down to like 11-12-year-old me and be like, oh my gosh, like that is amazing. And I loved it, and it was one of the highlights of my trip. And I remember the cast member was just so cheerful and so like she just made the whole interaction so amazing. And I talked about that a lot through like my application and my interviews. So I definitely think push on things like that, but also talk about the fact you want to share your own culture. I basically talked about, obviously during the pandemic, that not a lot of people from the UK got to like go out there, and also the fact that I would just love to be able to experience other people's culture. So I talked about obviously the fact that like going out into America, like living in America, how different that will be. I talked about the fact of getting to mingle with so many people from so many different places. Guests, being able to talk to guests. I know that whilst actually working out there, I had so many experiences where people from the UK and even people from like quite local to me would come and talk to me just because they heard my accent, like, and it just gave them a bit of familiarity from home. And I had a lot of positive like guest interactions from that, just being like relatable. Like that is pretty much it. So I feel like in your application, obviously talk about that you love Disney. Like it's not, you obviously do, like if you're applying to this program you obviously love Disney, but I think you've got to like mellow on that a little bit and kind of think what will make you stand out. So talk about something meaningful to you, talk about what you want to get out of the experience, and just talk a lot about like the guests are the main thing about Disney do not care how much money you bring in, they do not care whether or not you, I don't even know, they just do not care about like the money side of things. Disney earns a lot of money, like they are not bothered, but you need to just be there to be like, yes, this is what I want to do for the guests, this is what I want to do for like everything else. So yeah, you just got to show them why you are a good candidate basically, and I think if you can do that then you'll smash it. I am really sorry for how long this video is. I am going to do a part 2, but I still have quite a few questions, so I'm going to keep going a little bit longer. But I hope this is really informative, and if it is, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe and things like that. Okay, so I've had a question that is, how many weeks is the programme? Now this changes every year. My programme was 10-11ish weeks, I believe. I flew out at the beginning of June and I was there till the end of August. But I know that programmes this year are running from May until September. I know that there's some programmes that are literally June till like middle of August. I think it just completely depends on what Disney have available. And there was 2 starting dates when I went out. So there was the one that I started on, which was like June 11th, I think. And then there was one on June the 17th, so like literally a week later. So yeah, they kind of stagger it just to make it easy for them at Flamingo Crossings and for the trainers. But apart from that, that's the only reason that I know they do that. And obviously that was the CEP. The CRP, which is the Cultural Representative Programme, that is a year-long programme. So yeah, and I don't think it's been brought back yet, but they do have an international programme as well, which is 6 months, I believe. But I could be wrong on that. Okay, what other role would you have liked? My other roles that I would have liked would have been attractions or lifeguarding. That was initially. I'm glad I didn't get lifeguarding now, looking back on it just from friends' experience. I mean, don't get me wrong, like they had the best hands and things like that. I mean, I never had a bad guest experience just being in the Emporium. I don't think you really get bad experiences in the Emporium. I say that, touch wood, if anybody gets the Emporium now, but yeah, I don't know. I think if I was ever to do a programme again, I'd want merchandise, not gonna lie. I think it's the most versatile out of all the roles, because you can pick up in loads of different locations. You've got more option to, like, even if you're in attractions, you cannot move because you're trained to that attraction. But yeah, I think that is like my top role. At the time it wasn't. I was a bit gutted that I got merchandise over attractions, and that's just basically because 2 of my friends got attractions and I was like, oh, I would have liked it. However, when I got there and I got Emporium, that just changed everything. I was like, no, like, I'm so glad I got merchandise. And yeah, I just really liked it. If you want the more versatile approach, I definitely would say merchandise is up your street. If you want the, like, shorter shifts, I would say, but also the shifts where you're going to work more daytime shifts, I would say attractions is probably best. If you're good at swimming, you're a good lifeguard, then definitely go for lifeguarding. I mean, it's definitely a good role. It's got its perks of, like, being paid more and stuff like that. And yeah, you also get paid for a lot of training. So you do like 2 or 3 weeks of training before you even start as a lifeguard out there. So obviously you are getting paid to literally train up, even if you already know how to do it. So yeah, and then even like with quick service food and bev and stuff like that, I think everyone has its perks. But yeah, I would have either, if I went out and did another programme, I would want merchandise. I'd either want merchandise or attractions, but I'd want a cool attraction if I got attractions. Like, I'd probably like want something like in Star Wars, even though I've never watched Star Wars, because you get to like act. You've got to stay really in character. Or I'd like something, I don't even know, maybe like Guardians. I don't think they'd put CPs on Guardians though, but yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'd like merch. I'd like to be back in the Emporium if I ever went back, but that's a conversation for another time. Okay guys, that is it for this week's video. This is just part 1 to all of the questions. I have about 14 questions left to answer, so I'm going to answer them in the next video, which will be out next week. But I really hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed this little like series talking about my experience. And just answering your guys' questions. I really enjoy doing stuff like this because it kind of just lets me be able to talk and brag about the fact that I went, not brag, but like kind of just share my experience with you guys. And I feel like I don't get to do that very often because obviously everyone like around me knows I've been, and it's not really a hot topic of conversation anymore, but I just love talking about it. So yeah, I hope that you have enjoyed. I hope I've been informative enough to answer your questions, and if you have any more questions, please just hit me up in my DMs and Insta, or leave comments down below. I'm always active on my socials, so I will get back to you as soon as possible. But yeah, I really hope this has been helpful. Please give it a thumbs up if it has. Subscribe down below if you are new here, or if you like my content and you want to see more of it. But yeah, I will be back with a brand new video for part 2 of this video next week. See you real soon.